I want to call on a friend of mine to introduce our speaker. He has taught my Sunday school class. I go to First Methodist Church. He's come and spoken several times to our Sunday school class. We're the questers. So we're seeking, as we all in here are seeking the light and more knowledge of the world and God and the influences of God in our lives. Now, our questers, I told him earlier tonight that our questers started when I was in my 30s. My wife was probably in her teens or 20s, of course. But we've grown older together, so we've been together 30 to 40 years. So it's a privilege for me to introduce Dr. Aubrey Lurie, who is a graduate of medical school Waters trained in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm not sure that I can pronounce the name of it, but he's been in the United States for a long time. He is the chief of pathology and laboratory medical science at the VA. He's also the medical director at the VA School of Medical Technology and a member of the synagogue that Cantor is from. And I'm going to have him briefly say a few words about Cantor and introduce Cantor and so forth. Dr. Lauer.
We'll just see if the microphone is working and give you a chance to get used to my lack of an accent. Mr. Hill, members of the Scottish Rite of Freemasons group, thank you for honouring Joan and myself at your interesting ceremony and dinner, and for the honour of introducing Cantor Neil Schwartz to you. I might add that we've been married a little longer than you. About 54 years ago. I got married at the age of 10. I'm going to start by explaining the hierarchy of religious leaders in many synagogues. Usually the main religious leader is an ordained minister, which we call a rabbi, whose function is to interpret, explain, and expound on the religious teachings in the synagogue. These teachings are sourced on the Torah, a handwritten scroll on parchment dating back 3,000 to 4,000 years, believed by many to have been written by God. The Torah is the most treasured item in the synagogue and is clothed by beautifully inscribed covers and crowned like a queen with silver bells. It is paraded around the synagogue and kissed and venerated by all. Now, the writings of the 5 books of Moses, each letter of each word is handwritten by specially trained scroll writers with no script errors allowed. The explanations for all the writings of the Torah are collected into commentaries called the Talmud, the Mishnah, and the Gemara. Knowledge of these texts and writings takes years of intense study. There are many, many commentaries, several of which are printed in the margins of the hallowed text by many famed authors such as Moses, who gave the Torah to the liberated Jews in Sinai, and Maimonides, a physician scholar who lived in Spain and in Egypt in the 12th century. A cantor is an individual, most often with a fine voice, trained to read and recite the words in the Torah and the prayers. The cantors fulfill the instruction to sing out loud of the glories of God, and to do this on behalf of the congregation of worshippers who gather in the synagogues to pray to God. There's a beautiful prayer called Hineni that is recited on the Jewish New Year and other holidays, in which the cantor pleads with God to accept his prayers delivered on the part of the congregation. He declares that he does this with great humility, as he himself has blemishes and imperfections, and that God should overlook these failings and accept the prayers as coming from the whole congregation. A cantor has to be well versed in Jewish liturgy, literature, customs and practices, including lifestyle events. Music is very important to Jews, and prayers are sung to express their joy and faith in God. Many of the cantors have magnificent voices, and several have gone on to careers in opera. I can mention Jan Pearce and Richard Tucker, who had outstanding careers at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, or Al Jolson, Mandy Potemkin on Broadway, or in the popular music scene, such as Simon and Garfunkel, Mel Torme, Barry Manilow, and Randy Newman. The Jewish love of music is reflected in great Jewish composers and lyricists, such as Gustav Mahler, Felix Mendelssohn, George Gershwin, Aaron Copland, Evan Kander, Ernest Bloch, Irving Berlin, Neil Diamond, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Marvin Hamlish, Ernest Bloch, Irving Berlin, Leonard Bernstein, Sammy Kahn, Kurt Weill, and Sigmund Romberg. Many famous musicians such as Vladimir Horowitz, Arthur Rubinstein, Itzhak Perlman, Shura Tchaikovsky, Yasha Heifetz, Benny Goodman, Herb Alpert, Leonard Bernstein again, Andre Previn, and so on and so on and so on. The Jews love music. Cantor Schwartz joined the Congregation of Good of Achim here in Shreveport as our latest spiritual leader. It is my pleasure to introduce you to him and to ask him to comment on the Feast of Tishri and other subjects which occurs at this time of the year. I present to you Cantor Schwartz.
Let us engage in the newest interfaith ritual, the turning off of the cell phones. Please. Okay, that's the only ritual you'll have to do tonight. Here's the question. What do we know about the festivals of the ancient Israelites and modern Jews? The answer is that we have sources, most of which were already mentioned by Dr. Lurie, the Torah, the rabbinical writings, and the science of archaeology. So, much of what I'm going to be talking about tonight comes directly from the Torah, not even mediated by those rabbinical writings, which are only 1,800 to 1,500 years old. The Torah is at least 2,500 years old, if not closer to 3,000. So, let me show you what a Torah looks like. This is a paper model. A real Torah, as Dr. Lurie mentioned, is handwritten. It takes about 65 hides sewn together to make up one of these scrolls. Fully unwound, it would wrap all the way around the inside of this room, and then some. It takes a person a year to write one of these. It is all consonants, no vowels. This, a Torah is considered so holy that we do not actually touch the parchment when we read it. We follow with a pointer. And this one happens to have a curved finger, but there's a little hand at the end of this pointer. And this is how we follow because the Torah is so sacred, we don't want to touch it. However, this is the scroll of Esther. It's made the exact same way, handwritten with a quill, sewn together with sinew. The ink, in fact, is handmade using a formula that has stood the test of time, and
I've worked in a synagogue where one of the Torah scrolls was 250 years old and not a letter was missing. Those of you who have as part of your liturgy the phrase, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might." I'm curious how many of those I see nods. Just raise your hand if that's something that you would be saying in church. Okay, at least half. Well, we put that in a little case on the doorpost of our home. And this also is a handwritten piece of parchment. This is taken from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. That's what's wrapped up inside here. And this tells us that we should be teaching our children all of the rules that God gave us. Whether God gave it directly to Moses or via people over time, that's a discussion we're not going to have. But in any case, God certainly inspired it, at the very least. One reason that we build this building, this little temporary building, on the fall harvest holiday of Sukkot, is to fulfill this command to teach to your children. Have you ever had children or grandchildren who have enjoyed decorating the Christmas tree? Well, Jewish kids whose families build these do the same sorts of thing. They put hopefully non-edible decorations inside this thing. I say non-edible because real fruit attracts wasps and you don't want that. So, before talking any more about that, we need to spend a minute talking about where we come from and where we have lived, because that's going to affect some of what you're going to see with regards to our calendar. So if I could ask for some help, we're going to very quickly go through these flip charts. So hopefully, all the maps are the same. You'll recognize that's the Atlantic, that's the Mediterranean, the Black Sea, the Persian Gulf, Red Sea, and hopefully you can see something of the arrows. So, according to the Bible, we start in Babylonia, go to Canaan with Abraham, down to Egypt with Joseph, and back out of Egypt in approximately the 1250s, back to Canaan, and as we heard in the ceremony before supper, the United Kingdom was at its largest under the reign of David and Solomon in the 900s. Next. The northern kingdom, the kingdom split. The northern kingdom was destroyed by Assyria, which filled the whole area where Iraq and Syria are now, in 721 before the Common Era. 150 years later, the people who lived in the southern part of Mesopotamia, where only Iraq is, destroyed King Solomon's temple. Remember that because that's going to have something to do with our calendar. We were allowed to go back to Canaan, to Palestine, by the Persians, and about 600 years later, the Romans destroyed the second temple. They carried, whatever Jews they didn't murder, they carried them as slaves into Europe. And on the next chart, we will see that it took about 1,000 years. Whoops. We're going to skip that one for a minute. Just a sec. Okay. All right, just hang on to that. We're going to need that one back. It took about 1,000 years to get from Italy up to France, Germany, and eventually England. Meanwhile, in the 700s, as the Arabs moved west across North Africa and into Spain, Jews went with them also. Okay. Now the next one. After the horrors of the Crusades, we were given refuge in Eastern Europe by two different Polish kings. And in 1492, 200,000 Jews were kicked out of Spain. They went right back to the Middle East because the Ottoman Empire, which controlled the entire Middle East, gave them refuge. Same reason for both, which is both the Ottoman Empire and the Polish kingdoms wanted to establish finance and commerce, and they knew that since Jews had never been allowed to own land once they left Israel, they could do stuff like that. Again, more Jews coming to Eastern Europe, and then eventually back, and finally heading over to North America, and one more sheet, heading right back where we all started, which is from the corner corners of the earth, literally right back to Israel. So that's where we've been. Thank you very much, sir. That's where we've been, and that actually affects our calendar. So, I have a little math here. I know it's awful small, so I'm going to read it. A lunar cycle, strictly observed, means that every month is either 29 days or 30 days. So, split the difference, call it 29 and a half, multiply that times 12, and you only get 354 days. Well, we know that a solar year needs 365 days. That means about every 3 years, we have fallen an entire month behind the solar calendar. Now, if our holidays were simply historical, simply religious, and had nothing to do with being tied in to the agricultural cycle of ancient Israel, no big deal if Passover eventually comes in the middle of, well, at least where I come from, snow. Here, I don't know if it ever gets cold enough that you couldn't celebrate Passover, but certainly in Minnesota, it's often still snowing in Passover time. But every single one of our holidays, including this one, has an agricultural component. Therefore, there had to be a correction, and the correction is every 3 years or so we add a 13th month. Now, here's how you know when we're doing it, because it affects Easter. You're familiar with the fact that Easter will be early April, and then the next year it'll be mid-March, and then all of a sudden the third year Easter jumps all the way to mid-April? Well, that's because we added that 13th month. We're following the same new moon. So, what is our holiday cycle, and where does Tishri fit into it, and this building? So, the holiday cycle depends whether you're looking from the perspective of Palestine or Babylonia. The holiday cycle either starts in the spring with Passover, which is Israel's odd enough to have two harvests, so the spring harvest starts then, and Passover's down here in Nisan. And Easter, of course, always falls during Passover. And you go all the way through the summer, and this direction, you go all the way through the summer, and exactly opposite that month during which Passover falls comes the celebration of the fall harvest, which is the month of Tishri. These holidays are all listed in the Torah. The ancient holidays. And it was the Babylonian community among whom the Jews lived for several centuries that celebrated New Year in the fall. It was the Egyptian and Palestinian community that celebrated New Year in the spring. So that is why our religious New Year starts at the 7th month during the month of Tishri. So, that holiday is actually starting next Sunday night. Next Monday, we are going to do something that it's too early in my time for any of you to start nodding off, but when I'm done with this next thing, you wouldn't be nodding off anymore. We blow a ram's horn, or some of us are lucky enough to own an antelope horn.
So the New Year's is a very solemn time for us. This came from a ram. I love using this one to demonstrate because you can see that it's still rough. So it's all curly-cued. This part got straightened out. And, let's see, could you hold that for a sec, please? Thank you. I once had a series of teachings in Catholic schools in Canada in their religion classes, which were at 8 o'clock in the morning. And high schoolers at 8 o'clock in the morning are often nodding up. But they weren't anymore when I was done with that. This comes from an antelope, which is also kosher. Think it would be a lot lower, but they happen to be the same pitch. So, on Rosh Hashanah, we begin the process of talking to God about our understanding of what we have done wrong in the previous year, and we also celebrate the birthday of the Word.
I'll use this so you can hear me. So the two themes are beginning the process of repentance and celebrating the birthday of the Word. 10 days later, though, on Yom Kippur, we have a 25-hour fast during which we ask God for forgiveness for all our mistakes the entire previous year. So, that one, we only end with a single shofar blast at the end of 25 hours when the fast is over. 5 days later, we celebrate the fall harvest. Now, not necessarily the fall harvest anywhere else in the world, but the timing of the fall harvest in Israel. So that's where this thing comes in. First, let me address the issue of the left-hand picture over there. I put the right-hand one up to show you that every holiday except Yom Kippur, because we're fasting, and even Yom Kippur begins with candles, but every other holiday also is sanctified by a cup of wine or kosher grape juice. However, the left-hand picture is actually probably nicer looking than what I can actually show you. If I was giving this talk 2 weeks from now, I would have this fall's brand new fresh 4 species. The palm branch, a couple little twigs, 3 myrtle twigs, and a citron, which is bigger than a lemon, and which has a little point sticking out. As you can see it in the lower right-hand corner there. If you know anything about biology, it's how that particular fruit makes sure it's got babies. And if it gets knocked off, since these only grow in Israel, you've got yourself a $50 lemon that doesn't even taste very good. So all I can show you now is dried versions that have survived from previous years. So let me go grab that.
Okay. You can tell that once upon a time this was a beautiful, thick, lush palm bough, and the myrtle has a couple very intrepid leaves still hanging on, and the shreds of the last leaves on the willow are right there, and the 4th species is this citron. So pretend that the citron is the size of my hand, my fist, and it's bright yellow, and it smells wonderful, and A little bit later, I will actually wave these and show you how we use them in our liturgy. It's used in two different parts of our liturgy. Put these back for the moment. Closest thing I could find to a wine cup I have not fully unpacked yet. Most of our wine cups are silver, but I did find one that is at least the right shape that I think one of my kids used when they were little. You could use a regular wine goblet, but the point is to do something special, to use something special to make the sacred time special. This is an excerpt from Psalm 118. It's coming. Okay, if I do right here, can you all see?
What that line in Psalm 118 says is, give thanks to God because His kindness, His compassion, His mercy lasts forever. Now, here's a little mini bombshell. I was a chaplain at the local university for 9 of us from different religions, including an Aboriginal chaplain. They call it the Native Americans up there, Aboriginals or First Nations. And I had a chance to not only go to a sweat lodge, but to attend a few peace night ceremonies. Not only, I want to watch Dr. Berry's face when I say this, not only do they wave the peace pipe after it's been smoked, they wave it at the end of the ceremony, they wave it in the exact same directions. East, south, west, north, up and down. The first time I saw that, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Did two ancient peoples come up with the same thing? As far as we know, unless you believe that they're the 10 lost tribes, there's no connection between the northern hemisphere and the western hemisphere and the eastern hemisphere when these things were invented thousands of years ago, these rituals. So that is a little spooky. Here's the other one, and this one I'm actually going to have to follow here. We, at the end of the service on this holiday, we walk around the entire perimeter of the sanctuary chanting something like this. This is an alphabetical list, I won't do the whole thing, but you'll get the idea, of saying, for the sake of your truth, your covenant, your greatness, your glory, your Torah, your majesty, your meeting place, your fame, your mercy, your goodness, etc., etc. Okay.
Hosanna, 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 Hosanna. Lema, right foot first. Lema anamita, lema anderita, lema angolafeti verta, lema
Save us. Save us. Okay. The last thing I would like to do, any questions? The last thing I would like to do, with these are my hands, is contrast that sort of festival chanting that is specific to the Fall Harvest Festival, when this booth is built. Contrast that with something with a couple different types of music that happen on a regular basis on the set.